Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to Your Story Hour. If you enjoy this story, be sure to give it a like below the video and subscribe for another episode every Monday. God bless.
Hi there, everyone. This is Aunt Carol.
And I'm Uncle Dan, and I believe, Aunt Carol,
Yes?
that you have a story all ready for us.
Yes, in fact, I do, from American history. But the main character in my story may not be familiar to very many of our listeners.
Oh, but I don't...
He isn't really all that famous.
So why are you...
Telling a story about him?
Yes, right.
Well, I'd like for more people to know about him.
Okay.
And I'd like for them to learn more about the times in which he lived and what his life was like, along with many others in his same situation, and what an honorable, worthy man he was. In fact, our story today begins with a father who is telling his children this very story, the story of this
Aunt
person.
Carol,
So,
whoa,
yeah, what?
Whoa, hold on. If I understand correctly, we're going to kind of listen in as this father tells his children the story of the person you have in mind.
Right, Uncle Dan.
Okay, then, I think I have it now. What do you call your story for today?
I call it Amos Fortune, Man of Honor.
It is too your turn, Javon.
Is not, Tanisha.
Is too.
Oh, okay, kids. Come on, enough arguing about chores. I think I need to tell you a story.
Aw, Dad, not one of your stories. I'm supposed to meet up with Darnell and shoot some hoops in 10 minutes. Come on.
Yeah, and you have to load the dishwasher first.
It's your turn.
Is not.
Darnell can wait. The hoops can wait. And the dishes can wait. Both of you. Javon, Tanisha, right now, to the living room. It's time for another story to give my children a little perspective.
This isn't gonna take long, is it?
You know Daddy's stories always take a long time, Javon.
Sit, both of you.
Yeah, okay. I'm sat.
Me too. So, Daddy, what's your story about?
Yeah, let's get started so we can finish before tomorrow.
Well, it's about a man that my great-granddaddy told me about. He heard the story when he was a boy from some of the sharecroppers on the old Jackson place. And some of them heard the story from the slaves who...
Slaves? Is your story about a slave?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, believe me, slavery isn't dead. Do this, do that.
Load that dishwasher.
Whatever.
Oh, I know. It's a terrible life the two of you lead.
You got that right.
So what's this slave's name anyway, Daddy?
Well, nobody knows what his real name was when he lived in Africa. There have been several books written about him, and one author said his name was Atman, and that he was an African prince.
But he wasn't?
The truth is that nobody knows.
How was he captured?
Nobody really knows how he was captured either. Back then, sometimes competing tribes captured their rivals and sold their captives to slave traders. And often the slave traders themselves made raids into the village and rounded up all the strong young men and boys, and even girls.
Really?
Oh, yes. It was a terrible time. And then they were herded into the slave ships and packed so tightly into the dark, stinky underbelly decks that they could hardly breathe. In fact, up to a third of the slaves died on the ships from disease and cruelty before they ever made it across the ocean.
But I guess the slave that you're talking about made it over here.
That's right.
So, when he got here, where did he...
Did he land in America?
Yeah.
Nobody even knows that for sure. Granddaddy thought he was offloaded somewhere along the coast of New England and was sent to be auctioned off.
5 minutes, folks.
Well, Caleb, I'm surprised to see you here. I thought Quakers didn't keep slaves.
Many do not, it is true. And none of us like to, Hiram, but ever since Joshua died, I've been short-handed. Old Samuel is sick, and I need help.
Yes, always something, eh? Well, at least these are the lucky ones. They could have been sold in the islands to die in the sugarcane fields. Very few of them survive that life.
Or in the south, in the cotton fields. Not as bad as the cane fields, I hear, but not so good either. Some good masters, I guess, and a lot of bad ones, too.
Well, there are folks up here in New England that think slavery is wrong. But there is good money in it, very good money.
5 minutes and we'll be ready. They're bringing them up from the ship now.
I know all about your money, Hiram. Get cane sugar from the islands, make rum from it, buy more slaves with the rum, and sell them for more cane. It's not right.
And yet, here you are, my friend, at the slave auction. At least our slaves in the North often work in the field right with their owners in the other hand. Sometimes they even learn a trade. Why, your wife, like many Quakers, even schools them in reading and writing.
And the Bible?
Oh, yes. And the Bible. I suppose that takes a little of the sting out of it, right? Oh, there now, Caleb. How about that fine-looking specimen, the first in line?
All right, folks, step up and take a look at this strapping young fella. Let me see. Yes, good teeth. And look at these muscles. What am I bid?
15 pounds sterling.
Come, people, take a better look.
20 pounds.
20 pounds, do I have 20 pounds? 25 pounds, do I have
25.
25 pounds, do I have
30.
30 pounds, do I have 40?
40 pounds.
Excellent,
40
Caleb.
pounds, 40 pounds. Excellent. 40 pounds going once, 40 pounds going twice. Sold to the gentleman in front row for 40 pounds.
And so the slave was sold. Some say to a Quaker family who named him Amos Fortune.
Fortune?
He doesn't sound very fortunate to me.
Well, we do know that a few years later, Amos Fortune could read and write. So it's likely that he was indeed purchased by a Quaker, since they often taught their slaves. We also know that he knew the trade of bookbinding, and there was a man by the name of Deacon Fortune who may have become Amos's owner and taught him the trade. You see, slaves were often given the same last name as their owners.
But we don't know, right?
Not for sure, but we do know that in 1752, there are actual records showing that Amos was living in Woburn, Massachusetts, and was owned by Ichabod Richardson, who was a tanner by trade.
What's a tanner do, Daddy?
Well, he takes the skins of animals and treats them so they become soft leather. It was a long, drawn-out process.
So, Amos, do you have the hides soaking that Mr. Jessup brought to us yesterday?
Yes, sir, Master Richardson. I split them into sides as you've shown me to do so they're easier to handle. And now they're in the first water vat to soak.
Very good. As soon as we've scraped the Peterson horsehide to get the hair and bits of flesh off, take a couple of helpers with you to the woods to strip the bark for more tannin. We need to strengthen the tannin ooze vats for the Hickman hides.
Already done, Master Richardson. Yesterday. We had to go a bit farther this time to find some black oak trees.
Well, that's the best bark, all right.
Yes, sir, Master Richardson. Black oak and hickory.
Well done.
And we already took it to the bark mill for grinding. It should be ready by tomorrow.
Excellent. I declare, Amos, I half think you could run this operation by yourself. But then I have taught you very well. To be a really good tanner, you need to know every step. And as you have seen, it can take up to a year to produce a superior product.
Yes, sir. And I want to learn it all.
Yes, Amos, I believe you do. And now...
Yes, sir?
I'm thinking of expanding operations, and I want you to be in charge. We have 6 vats already dug for the various stages, and we have the river nearby to supply all the water we need. But if we had more vats, we could handle more hides. And I want to be set up not only to tan more hides, but to process more of the lighter hides as well in the tawing process. There's a big call for buckskin these days.
Yes, sir. And leather for ladies' gloves.
Exactly. So, dig more vats and see about a source for more chicken dung for tawing for those lighter hides.
Yes, Mr. Richardson. Right away.
Ew, chicken dung, that's stinky.
Yeah. Dad, they used chicken poop?
And pigeon poop. They'd soak the hides to be taught in it for months.
Why?
To change the lighter, thinner hides to soft leather. And they'd have to handle them every day, too, to make them pliable.
Yuck.
We don't think about those things today because it's all done in a factory setting. But in the old days, they say you could smell a tannery for, quite some distance away.
I bet you could.
Poor Amos.
Yes, maybe, but every town of any size had a tannery. And it was honest, honorable work. You have to remember that leather was used for just about everything. They didn't have plastic or nylon. And they used leather for things that everybody needed.
Right. But Amos was a slave. He didn't own the place. So what if it was a big success?
Yeah.
True. And no doubt he dreamed of the days back in Africa when he had been free. And I imagined he dreamed of the day when he could be free again.
Fat chance that could happen.
Well, maybe it could.
Wow, Aunt Carol. I'm eager to discover just what he meant when he hinted that maybe Amos could be free one day.
I'm eager to tell you all about it, but first...
Yes?
Well, Uncle Dan, I thought maybe we could take just a minute to tell our listeners about all the ways they can be in contact with us.
Oh, good idea, Aunt Carol. Now, one of the easiest ways is to go to our website.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find us at yourstoryhour.org. That's yourstoryhour, all one word, .org. And once you're there, you'll find all kinds of interesting things.
Like our podcasts, a list of our products, our latest news, and Clubhouse Magazine.
Oh, yes, Clubhouse, with all of its stories, cartoons, puzzles, and jokes.
Well, now, Uncle Dan, speaking of jokes, here's a riddle for you straight from the pages of Clubhouse.
Okay, Aunt Carol, I'm ready.
All right, then. What lies on the ground 100 feet up?
100 feet up on the ground?
Yes.
But I
thought so. You don't know, do you?
Well,
Give up?
Okay, I give up. But it better be good.
All right. The answer to what lies on the ground 100 feet up is, ta-da, a centipede lying on his back.
What? Okay, I get it. I get it.
All 100 of his little centipede feet are up when he's lying on his back on the ground.
So cute. 100 feet up. Pretty good, Aunt Carol. Pretty good.
I knew you'd like it.
I guess that was sent in by one of our listeners.
Oh, yes. Anyway, while we're at it, I guess we need to tell everyone our other contact information. You can call us at 1-800-987-7879. That's 1-800-987-7879.
And you can write to us, too. So have a paper and pen ready at the end of the program for our address. And now, Aunt Carol,
yes?
I think it's time to finish your story.
All right, then. Here's the conclusion of Amos Fortune, Man of Honor.
So, Dad, what do you mean? Could Amos really be a free man?
Maybe he ran away. I think I would have.
No, he didn't run away. And yes, occasionally, especially in the North, a slave could earn his freedom, or was given his freedom by his master. You know, the odd thing was that the wealthy, important families in the North were usually the very ones who financed the whole slave trade business and owned the big ships that brought them from Africa.
Really?
Yep. Anyway, slaves like Amos sometimes even earned money along the way. And we do know that one day, when Amos was just a little over 40 years old, Ichabod Richardson, Amos's master, spoke to him about the matter.
Amos, you've been a valuable workman. Been a real help to me. Anyway, I'm writing my will, which states that 6 years after my death, you are to be a free man.
And then, later, on December 30th, 1763, a little over 10 years later, Richardson drew up papers which promised Amos his freedom 4 years from that date, or immediately if Richardson should die before that date came.
I, Ichabod Richardson, tanner of Woburn in the province of Massachusetts Bay in New England, agreed to, and with my Negro man Amos, that at the end of 4 years next ensuing this date, The said Amos shall be discharged, freed, and set at liberty from my service, power, and command forever.
Great, so what happened? Did he have to wait 4 years or...
Yeah, or did Richardson die first?
Well, it turned out not to be quite that easy.
I've called you here, Amos, to discuss your, freedom.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter.
As you know, Ichabod Richardson recently died, and I am one of his heirs. The business of dealing with his estate has fallen to me.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter. And so I am now free
Wait. Unfortunately, the papers to which you refer were never signed.
Never signed?
And they are therefore not valid. And the last will, which he quickly put together just days before his death, didn't mention you at all.
But, sir,
I know this comes as a shock, Amos. And I have to believe it was an oversight on Mr. Richardson's part, but unfortunately, with nothing signed, you are still part of his earthly goods, shall we say.
What does that mean, Mr. Carter? For me?
Well, I've been thinking. You know that here in New England, the town is responsible for the care of its sick or poor citizens?
Yes, sir.
That would include you, if you were a free man. And if you were to remain a slave of the family, we would be responsible for your care. So I would like to arrange a compromise.
What do you mean, Mr. Carter?
For the next few years, you will pay me £6 a year, so that if, for some reason, you can't support yourself, then I'll have your funds in hand to take care of you. During that time, even though you'll technically still be a slave, you'll be able to live and move about freely, as long as you pay the £6 per year.
I see, sir.
Well, you can work for yourself, in fact. Maybe it can be arranged for you to carry on the work of the tannery, if you like, with Mr. Richardson's nephew, Leonard. And at the end of that time, you will truly be free.
What a raw deal. He should have been free right when Mr. Richardson died.
If Mr. Richardson had remembered to put him in his will.
Yes, but at least there was a way out. In fact, in November of 1770, just 3 years after Mr. Richardson died, Amos made the last payment. He was 60 years old, and he was a free man.
Yeah, but now he's old.
Well, Amos didn't think so.
What do you mean, Dad?
Amos began a whole new life as a free man, working first with Leonard at the tannery. Now, he also made the lives of others better. For example, he had a friend, another slave by the name of Pompey Blackman, and Pompey trusted Amos too.
Amos, I want to ask you a favor.
Just say the word, my friend. How can I help you?
You know I can't read or write, but I know you can, and I have some legal matters ahead of me. Would you be willing to help me, to represent me? I'd sure appreciate it.
Yes, Pompey, of course. It's called power of attorney, and I'm honored that you trust me.
Oh, I trust you. I know you to be a man of honor. And I know you help everyone you can. Why, you even bought the freedom for one woman just so she could taste what it was like not to be a slave before she died.
Yes, well,
And if I don't miss my guess, you're about to buy the freedom for another lady. Now, don't you blush. I see you looking at that Miss Lydia Somerset. You may be going for most 70, my friend, but you...
Now, Pompey, don't you start on me. Mr. Richardson's daughter married the son of Miss Lydia's master. So I've seen her around plenty of times.
So?
Well, all right, then. I'm thinking
of
buying her freedom and marrying her, if she'll have me.
And Amos did buy her freedom for £50, and they did marry. But...
But what?
Well, she died just 3 months afterwards.
Wow, that's awful.
Yes, but he didn't give up. A little over a year later, on November 8th, 1779...
Amos, I just don't know how to thank you. I really...
Now, Miss Violet. I've known you for a long time. Met you first when Mr. Richardson's cousin...
Josiah Bowers.
The very same. came visiting, and there you were.
Owned by him.
But no more, Miss Violet Baldwin. As of today, you are a free woman for the bargain sum of £50.
A high price.
Maybe, but for a good woman. Talked to you at church many times, Miss Violet. All of slaves sitting there in the balcony, and learned what a generous heart you have.
And from my heart, I thank you. I just don't know what to say.
Now there's at least 2 of us that aren't slaves any longer. Me and you. I'm hoping that you'll not only enjoy your freedom, but that you'll agree to become Mrs. Amos Fortune.
Oh, yes, Amos, yes. Oh, I tell you, I've had my eye on you for a long, long time. Why, you're the most honorable man I have ever...
Well, then marry me tomorrow, Miss Violet.
I will. Yes, Amos, I will.
A couple of years later, Amos and Violet moved to Jaffrey, New Hampshire, where they settled temporarily on land that had been set aside for Reverend Laban Ainsworth, who was to become the town parson. Shortly after their arrival, they received a visit from Constable Thorndyke, who delivered the usual warning out speech for all new residents.
In the name of the government and people of Jaffrey, New Hampshire, not having obtained the town's consent for residing herein, you are hereby warned to depart immediately out of this town and no longer make it the place of your residence, under the pain that will follow.
Wow, Dad. They sure weren't very friendly. Was it because Amos had been a slave? Because he came from Africa?
No. Every new settler was warned out, so the town wouldn't be obligated to care for them if they became destitute.
So did they stay?
Oh, yes. Almost everyone just ignored the warning. And since Amos knew the skills of tanning, he set about establishing a very successful tannery of his own. He was so talented and trustworthy that people from all over, not just the citizens of Jaffrey, began to bring their hides to him.
Amos, I'm glad I found you here.
Samuel George, welcome. Your hides are ready. They have now become the softest leather. Well, the ones you'll use for clothing, and the strongest for your buggy springs.
Oh, I know your work, Amos. That's why I travel over here from Keene.
I thank you, sir.
And I know others come over the line from Massachusetts. Well, from all over these parts. Anyway, I'm hoping that my surety for payment is still to your liking. My good blue coat and fur hat, in at least partial exchange for your services. That is, if I don't redeem them by actual cash?
Yes, sir. If you don't redeem them, I'll be wearing those very items when I go to church at the meeting house.
If you do, you'll look like you own the town.
Well, not quite, Mr. George, but the town has been good to me. Plenty of business. In fact, I'm looking towards buying some property of my own here in Jaffrey where I can set up business permanently.
And in April of 1789, he did buy his own land, 25 acres along Tyler Brook, which would provide the water he needed. In fact, the road leading to that property, where his house and barn still stand to this day, is called Amos Fortune Road.
Really?
Yep. He was so successful that he had several people working for him at various times. His friend Pompey, who gained his own freedom by serving as a soldier, an apprentice by the name of Simon Peter, and a young man by the name of Charles Toothaker.
Here's our agreement, Mr. Fortune, for the apprenticeship of my son Charles. It states here that Roger Toothaker, that's me, both by his own free will and accord, do put and bind his son Charles Toothaker as apprentice to Amos Fortune of Jaffrey, to learn his art trade, until he shall arrive at age 21 years. It says further that he shall serve you, keep your secrets, and gladly obey you, that he'll do no damage, and serve without leave and further.
Wow! They could do that? I mean, that almost sounds like...
Slavery?
Yeah, Dad, it does.
Well, it was pretty common back then for young people to become apprentices and serve without pay. except for food, shelter, and clothes. Anyway, Amos continued to live a hard-working, honorable life, and he was good-hearted, too. For example, he and Violet agreed to take in the child of a friend of theirs who had died and left his family destitute.
That was pretty nice of him.
It was, but Polly Burdew was a sickly girl, and unfortunately, she died when she was only 15 years old. He also adopted a girl by the name of Celindia, but nobody seems to know very much about her.
Wow.
And Amos wasn't only a very successful businessman and benefactor, he was a full member of the church. Lots of people went to church, but very few were full members in those days. It was a mark of distinction and recognition of a person's knowledge of the Scriptures to have that honor bestowed upon you. He was also one of the founders of Jaffrey's first library, and when he died at the age of 91, it was clear he was a man of some means. He left money to take care of Violet and household items for Celindia. Plus, he left money to the local school and for his church.
I, Judge Parker, do stipulate, as is my duty in execution of this estate, that $100 be allotted to the church for the purchase of a communion service for the meeting house to commemorate the life and legacy of Amos Fortune, honorable citizen of Jaffrey, New Hampshire.
Cool. It sounds like he was really liked by everybody.
Oh, yes. In fact, Amos Fortune is possibly the best-known citizen who ever lived in Jaffrey. And the money he left to the library is still used to this day to produce educational materials.
And just think, he started out as a slave.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Javon. Maybe someday you'll become famous, since you're such a slave.
Yeah, okay. I get it. I'll go load the dishwasher.
Well, then, I guess Amos Fortune would be proud to know that his story continues to make a difference in people's lives even today.
Well, Aunt Carol, Amos Fortune was quite a man.
He certainly was.
From slave to honored businessman and community leader.
Yes, and as a further honor to him and later to Violet, they were buried with stone markers inside the walls of the local cemetery. Very unusual for slaves or former slaves in those days. The words engraved on Amos's marker read, "Sacred to the memory of Amos Fortune, who was born free in Africa, a slave in America. He purchased liberty, professed Christianity, lived reputably, and died hopefully, November 17th, 1801.
Well, I guess we'd all like to have words as good as those as our final memorial.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Aunt Carol.
Yes?
Well, we promised to give our mailing address, so here it is. Box 8, Niles, that's Niles, Michigan, 49120. Again, that's Box 8, Niles, Michigan, 49120.
And here's our phone number once again. It's 1-800-987-7879. That's 1-800-987-7879.
And our web address, yourstoryhour.org.
And now we really must go. Our time's up.
But we'll see you next time with another exciting story.